Today we're going to take a tour of your Speakers League Handbook. Have the handbook in front of you while viewing this video if you can, and pause the video as needed. Let's start by looking at the cover. You can start by putting your name in the area at the top right so someone else doesn't pick up your handbook by mistake. We actually have different handbooks for in-person versus online clubs. This handbook that we'll be reviewing is for an in-person club, but it's the same as the handbook for online clubs in most respects. There are 4 levels in Speakers League. This handbook covers levels 1 and 2. As you open your handbook, you'll see that the first page has another place where you should write your name and a cell phone number where you can be reached. This is helpful when you accidentally leave your handbook behind at a meeting or somewhere else. Handbooks cost money to replace, so keep track of yours. The table of contents is the main part of this first page, and it actually is 2 pages long. Notice how it's broken out into different sections. The first section is the Code of Conduct. We'll talk more about this in a little bit. The next section is About Speakers League. This is where we'll give you an overview of what Speakers League is all about, what happens at meetings, how we refer to each other, the dress code, and more. The next section is about what you should know before your first speech. After that is information about creating a speech. Turn the page and you'll see the list of speeches and where to find their details. Then there's the section on how to do the roles at the meeting. For example, MC, Impromptu Master, Evaluator, and so on. Finally, at the end is a list of public speaking terms that you might find interesting. So there you have the table of contents, a quick place to find where you need to go in your handbook to find what you want. Page 1 of your handbook is the Code of Conduct. You and your parents should read this together and sign it. Your club chairperson will probably want to see this after it's signed. It confirms that you understand the importance of behaving in a courteous, professional, and respectful way at the club. When we all agree to the Club Code of Conduct, the meetings run really smoothly and everyone can have a good experience. Next, we move to the About Speakers League section of the handbook. After some brief comments about the member handbook and the levels, it goes into what happens at a typical meeting. Speakers League meetings follow a certain order of activities that we've listed here. You'll get used to the meeting format before you know it. One thing that can take a little while to get the hang of is when to sit, when to stand, and when to be at the lectern. That's why we created these little icons to help remind you what to do. By the way, the lectern is something that a speaker stands behind when he speaks. Our Top 10 Tips for the Lectern video will help you learn lots of great information about this area. It's very important that you be ready for your role before arriving at your club meeting. This starts by knowing what your role is. Be sure that you know where to find your club schedule, showing your roles for upcoming meetings. You're expected to take responsibility for knowing what your role is and being prepared for it at the meeting. The adult supervisor of the club is referred to as Mr. Chairperson if he is a man, or Madam Chairperson if she is a woman. Madam, if you didn't know, is a fancier title than Miss or Mrs. or Ms. for females. We like members to address the MC, Impromptu Master, and Meeting Manager by their meeting role titles as well. For example, Mr. MC, Madam Impromptu Master, or Madam Meeting Manager. Other roles are usually referred to just by the name of the role or by the person's name. For example, Timekeeper, may we have the eligibility report, or Sophia, may we have the eligibility report. Some clubs choose not to use Mr. or Madam. If your club chairperson wants to make any changes in things like this, you'll be advised what to cross out and or add to your handbook. At meetings, we generally applaud the introduction of someone and the completion of something. For example, the explanation of the timekeeper's role, hearing an impromptu answer, or getting the wordmaster's report. Members should applaud with the group at these times. A good rule of thumb is that if you notice your club chairperson clapping, you should be clapping too. When it comes to voting at the meeting, most clubs have members privately vote for the best impromptu answer, the best prepared speaker, and the best evaluator. You should only vote for yourself if you feel you truly did the best job. You should never discuss how you plan to vote or for whom you voted with other members. If you're going to be absent, we encourage your family to find a replacement from your club membership to take your role. If your club allows guests, we have some suggestions here as well. The dress code we encourage for Speakers League is business casual or better. For boys, this means a collared shirt and long pants, not jeans, with shoes and socks. For girls, this means long dressy pants, modest skirt or dress, and modest top, plus shoes or dressy sandals. You can find these items at a thrift store at a reasonable price. Your chairperson will let you know if your dress code guidelines are different from these. We suggest, if you haven't already, that you move away from any childish email address you may have been using and use a professional email address going forward. This is optional. To complete Level 1, you need to successfully present 7 speeches and do each club role following club guidelines while in that level. You can track your progress using these charts. The next section about what to do before your first speech is one of the most important sections of your handbook. It instructs you about the importance of reading the full description about the speech you're preparing and gives you guidelines for choosing a speech topic. It's extremely important that you familiarize yourself with the 6 speech types to avoid. Here we talk about do's and don'ts for launching and landing your speech. The main points here are not to say your name and the type of speech you're giving, but instead to start out with something that grabs the audience's attention. Also, don't mention the type of speech you gave at the end. Instead, it can work well to say something related to the topic of your speech. There are some examples of that and how to pass the meeting back to the MC here. The FAQ section will answer other questions you might have. The next major segment of the handbook is about creating a speech. Our formula for a good speech involves the 5 steps you'll read about here, and we've provided an example using these steps. Your final step to complete a speech is to complete a self-evaluation of your speech after watching a video recording of it. This page explains more about that. Now we're at the section about the Level 1 speeches. Notice the icon indicating that speeches are typically given in the lectern area. Lectern area usually means behind the lectern, but some speakers know their material well enough, or their speech requirements are such that they speak without a lectern at all, but are usually still at the head of the room where the lectern usually is. The 7 Level 1 speeches are the Getting to Know You speech, the Gesture speech, the Vocal Variety speech, the Visual Aids speech, the Organizing speech, the Speaker's Choice speech, and the Capstone speech. The first thing you'll see for each speech are the name of the speech and how long it should be. You can't receive votes unless you make it to at least the minimum time goal required for your speech, and also that you don't go over the maximum by more than 30 seconds. Each speech explanation in the handbook has 2 main sections. First is this section, headed What Your Club Chairperson and Evaluator Are Looking For. This list of items reminds you what presentation skills you're expected to use. Second is the Speech Details section, which gives you more information about how to meet these goals. Be sure to read the full details, because there's always important information that will help you pass your speech. If you don't meet the guidelines outlined in the Speech Details section, you probably won't pass the speech. Your chairperson will decide if you passed your speech, and the main thing they're looking for is whether you met the goals laid out across these sections. The Getting to Know You speech, your first speech in Level 1, actually has a 3rd section. That's this speech worksheet. It's the only speech that includes a worksheet. You're encouraged to use this provided speech worksheet instead of writing out your speech word for word. We have you use this worksheet to help you understand that presenting a speech is about answering a list of organized questions your audience might have. Even more importantly, we want to get you speaking from brief notes so you'll have good eye contact with the audience. The idea in every speech is for you to have enough knowledge of your topic to be able to speak from brief notes alone. Speaking from notes always sounds much more natural than reading a speech. You're also strongly encouraged to watch any available training videos or speech examples for these speeches. Your club chairperson can tell you where to find these. Let's jump to the next major section of the handbook, the roles. As it mentions here, you're responsible for knowing where your club schedule is posted and how to perform your role. Start by reading about your role and watching any available training video about it. If you have more questions, ask your club chairperson. Each role has a clear explanation, sometimes with checklists or scripts to help you know what to do and what to say. Let's take a look at the MC role. Here it explains about the role. It talks about how to make good introductions. And there's a reminder about how to make smooth transitions at the lectern. On the next page is a form to fill out before the meeting, and then a full rendition of how an MC might sound at the meeting. For the impromptu master role, there's a checklist for how to prepare for the role. There's a script for what to say before you ask your questions. There are guidelines for your questions, and there are examples of good and poor impromptu questions. There's a special section right after the explanation of the impromptu master's role about how to answer an impromptu question. We explain that you can answer any impromptu question because you can use any of three options. The straight answer, where you just answer the question that was asked, the change-up, where you answer with something related to the question asked, or the switcheroo, where you answer with something that has nothing to do with the question. This page explains more about that, and on the next page begin more examples of different techniques for answering impromptus. After that is the explanation of the evaluator role. The evaluator role is probably the most challenging role, so go over this section carefully and also watch our training videos on effective evaluation. Following evaluator are the explanations for other roles like humorist, wordmaster, poet laureate, timekeeper, and vote counter. Some of these roles in this section have training videos available to view as well, so be sure to watch them. Last in the handbook is a list of definitions for public speaking terms to help you learn some of the words that are special to public speaking. These last few pages are available for you to make notes about the other members to help you make great introductions. Well, that's the quick tour of the member handbook. Take some time to really go through it and learn from it to make yourself a knowledgeable member of the club. If you have any questions, just ask your club chairperson. Thanks for watching.